Hello, guys, and welcome to another day of PE Slick Podcast. I'm your host, Ranger Matt. Thank you for tuning in on both Facebook and Facebook and YouTube Live. Joining me right now is an intelligent man, Mr. Robert, sorry, Robert Thibodeau, and he's going to come on board to talk about his message involving ministries and what's going on in the world today. And here he is right now.
Hey,
Hey,
how you
Robert.
doing? All right. How you
Good. How
been,
you
man?
doing?
I'm
I'm
blessed,
good.
saved, going to heaven, and trying to ride along the way.
There you go, man. Listen, thank you for taking the time to come on board my podcast.
Not a problem, man. It's an honor. I've looked at some of the people you've had on there before, man. I don't know if I got outclassed on this one, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful to have been doing it. I've been doing this since December, and each time there's always somebody different, and you always post a lot of interesting, good messages from the Bible each Sunday, and I listen to it, and that's
Oh,
why I
praise
wanted to
God.
reach out to you to have you come on board, and thank you for it.
Hey, man, I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
No problem. Uh, where are you from?
Originally, I'm from Michigan.
Okay.
I got family down in Louisiana. We had, grandfather moved north to work in the car factories way back when,
Right.
and so I was born and raised up in Michigan. Joined the military straight out of high school and bounced all around. We moved 13 times in 12 years and through the military, and it ended up here in Baltimore. So that's how I came to be a Marylander.
Right. So I gotta be sure and ask, are you a Ravens fan or another team?
I have three favorite teams.
Okay.
Number one is the New Orleans Saints. I'm a Saints fan through and through.
Right.
Funny story about that. When I was about 9, my job was to cut the grass and rake the leaves and all that stuff. And my
Right.
dad paid me a whopping 25 cents a week. Right, 25 cents a week to cut the yard. And
Wow.
we were watching the Detroit Lions play the New Orleans Saints. And this is, oh God, I can't remember. I want to say 69, but come down to like 1-2 minutes left, and Detroit had just taken the lead by 1 point, and I was all happy and stuff, and my dad is like, New Orleans going to win this. I goes, there's no way. He said, tell you what, if New Orleans wins, you cut the grass the rest of the year for free. He goes, if Detroit holds on and wins, I'll give you $1 a week. I'm like, oh man, bet, And that's when Jack Dempsey kicked that 63-yard field goal. It bounced off the crossbar and went through for the win. Longest field goal in NFL history at the time. And
There you go.
and because I kept asking, why are people wearing bags over their heads and stuff like that? It's just because New Orleans sucks. They got season tickets, but they don't want to be seen going to the game. I think
Right.
they only won like one game in 2 years or something. But anyway, from that time on, I became a New Orleans Saints fan, and so naturally the Ravens. I root for the Ravens because the local team here, and then my third favorite team is whoever plays Dallas.
Okay. There we
Whoever's
go.
playing Dallas, that's my third favorite team.
There we go. It's interesting because I got a friend of mine who I've known since middle school. He is a diehard Cowboys fan, and I give my props to them, man, because I just saw an episode of I'm not sure if you knew that it was a show called Dallas with J.R. Ewing on.
Yep.
I just saw an episode on DVD with them talking about his son just said the Cowboys has the lowest rank in football history, but that was back in 1990. Today, well, yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So, Robert, talk about a bit about how you got as far as talking about ministries and okay, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
Okay. So can you talk about a bit about how you started doing videos on words from the Bible? Are you a pastor?
Yeah, ordained minister. I went to
Okay.
Bible school back in 1988, 1999 down in Fort Worth, Texas. And
Okay.
we came to Maryland in 2001. I opened a church here. Uh, I was also applied to become a police officer. So when I got accepted to the academy, I tried doing both, but I soon found that I could not answer those 2 a.m. calls for you know hospital visits or whatever because I was at work, type thing.
Right.
So we merged our church with a friend of mine here in the area. But yeah, I'm an ordained minister, and when we started, well, long story short, I used to be in the running for my military time, and ran the marathon, Baltimore Marathon, October of 2006. Ran that Baltimore Marathon, 2006. Right. Took off the rest of the year and then started building back up for the 2007 marathon. And May 12, 2007, I ran 9 miles, just building up my pace and distance again. Went to work that night and got injured in an accident, working an accident scene in the middle of a huge rainstorm out on the highway. I was with the Maryland Transportation Authority police. And, several surgeries later, they, starting to look like I wasn't going to be able to keep my job because can't chase bad guys. I messed my knee up and hip and back and all that. So I was recovering from one of the surgeries, and I was sitting there like, okay, Lord, I'm 50 years old. I'm getting a little old. Keep starting this stuff over. What do you want me to do? And It's just start a weekly 30-minute online radio program. I had no clue. Today it's called a podcast. I had no clue what I was doing back then. But I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything. I was just sitting at the computer. So I just started researching it, how to do it. And my first podcast was talking on a flip phone on a free website. And that was my today they call it a podcast. And it sounded like I was talking on a flip phone on a free website. Right. But about 3 or 4 months into that, I got approached by Wilkins Communications, and they said, hey, we heard your podcast. That's the first time I heard it called a podcast. Right. Mm-hmm. And they said, we heard your podcast. We think you'd be a good fit for nationwide AM radio, through our radio. They had about 12 different radio stations at the time. So would you like to be on nationwide AM radio? And I'm like, yes, yeah, okay, I can see this. Yeah. The little catch was I had to pay for it. I'm learning this stuff as I go.
Yeah, me too.
But we did a contract. It was like $700 a month or something like that for 4 major markets. Today, I call that one broadcast a week in 4 major markets. Today, I call that a commercial. But I thought it was really something back then. But, that's how we started. And I learned a lot by being on nationwide radio. That was a big learning curve. And, I signed a contract thinking, okay, it's a 1-year contract. It'll take at least a year and a half before they decide what's going to happen with me or not. So that's fine. Well, about 4 months into that contract, I got a letter in the mail. Congratulations on your retirement. Now I'm living on, reduced income. And that's $700 a month hurt. Well, praying about that, it was a contract. I had to do it. So we were, trying to make ends meet. And the Lord was like, having a hard time meeting your radio budget? He goes, oh, thank God, the blessing. Yes. He said, well, I called a lot of other pastors to preach on the radio. They can't afford it either. I want you to start your own online radio station and make it so affordable no pastor can say they can't do it. Now, real quick, I'm running numbers in my head. Okay, if I'm paying $700, if I let that down to $100 and had like 10 people, okay, I can see how this works. Sure, Lord, I'll do it. How much you want me to charge? Make it free. You do realize there's expenses involved with this, right? And he said, no, that's how we're going to start off. That's what we did. October 4th, 2010, we flipped the switch on evangelism radio. And we've been going 24/7 ever since. But I would do my broadcasts. What I was doing when we first started, I was doing a daily broadcast and then putting that on the radio. Well, as the responsibilities grew for the radio station, my time was being committed. I decided what I'll do is just Sunday morning do my whole 1 hour length broadcast and then edit it into 5 different episodes to play throughout the week. And that's what we started. And your question was about being on video. That was just a way to promote the broadcast and promote the radio station. You be it on Facebook Live and put it over on YouTube, and just trying to drive traffic to the radio station about the broadcast. So that was the long story to answer your short question.
Hey, listen,
the background.
Listen, it's cool. One thing about my podcast, I always tell my guests, I don't like rushing people. So it's like whenever I ask you a question, don't feel as though you got to be rushed, even if you give me a short answer, take your time with it. So, hey, that's just fine. You did good.
Hey, man. I'm in radio. I can talk. So.
There you go. Oh, man. I forgot to ask you at the top of the show, how are you holding up during this COVID that we got going on right now?
My business has increased. I guess a lot more people have time on their hands right now. So my, the podcast schedule that I released, when we first started the podcast, the Kingdom Crossroads podcast, that was a way for me to interview the broadcasters so that people just weren't being preached to all the time. They get the background on the broadcasters and all that. And, it actually started in 2017, but I don't count that as my first year because it was hit and miss. I might do two interviews, 2 episodes this month, none next month, do 1 more, then 3 the next month, and none the next month. So I don't really count that first year. I got approached by a publicist towards the end of 2017 and said, I have a Christian author that's releasing a book. Would you like to do an interview? I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. And that was so interesting. The story, the backstory and everything was so interesting. And then he said, well, I got another one. You want to do that? Yeah. And then I just a couple of musicians, Christian musicians and record label artists. And I found out that there are so interesting stories besides just the pastors. The pastors are, I was lost, got born again, got called, went to school, now I'm a pastor. I was lost, got born again, got called, went to school, now I'm a pastor. Where everyone else's stories are so, everybody's story is different.
Right.
So that's how I started the podcast now. And it started off, I do 1 a week, release 1 episode a week. And then I noticed, wow, I'm getting, like 2-3 months out of my publication schedule. So I'll do 2 a week. I didn't put much of a dent. I went to 3 a week. That helped a little bit. Eventually I went to 5 days a week. And, that cut it down to about a 2-3 week advance time in the publication schedule. Since this virus thing hit, I had to go to publishing twice a day to stay up. 2 episodes a day. I mean, I got hit with so many interviews. I mean, like I said, I guess people have a lot more free time on their hands right now, but it's slowed down a little bit now that the reopening has happened. It's slowed down a little bit. So we'll go, we'll look at it, we'll be monitoring it, but we're probably going to go back to once a day here shortly. But yeah, my workload increased exponentially during this virus.
Yeah, I guess for us as podcasters, we would think, with this happening, because at the time for me, I didn't even think about, well, a lot of people are home now. They have time to talk if they are interested in doing it. And now's the time to do it. And you're right, with things slowly opening up, maybe 1, maybe, but that's an interesting thing about this pandemic that I've learned from myself, you, and others. I'm sure Dominic Brightman as well. He said the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he said the same thing as well. Now is the time to try and go reach people, and he's actually one of the reasons why I started doing this.
Amen. Yeah, Dom's a great guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've known Dom about 3 years now, I guess, maybe a little bit more.
Lucky
He's
you.
awesome.
I've known him since third grade. I've had to deal with his
Really?
funniness all these years. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Dom's the same. I mean, he does. It's not a show. That's who he is.
Yeah.
He's hilarious. He's great.
Yeah. So for Robert, how would this is a question that I know it's kind of might be a long answer to, but I just wanted to get your input on this. I'm actually gonna have my pastor and his son come on next week to talk about this as well. With everything that's been happening in the world as far as the COVID goes, and people struggling and worrying, and businesses and all that, and well, now since we've talked before, we got the riot going on. But as far as COVID and all that goes, where do you see the world heading to right now? I mean, there's just so much going on. I mean, 2020 was a new decade. I mean, 10 years ago, I graduated from high school. 10 years later, new decade, but COVID didn't happen. The riot is now going on, and so much has been happening. And, in my job, they cut up my hours a bit, and I just got my hours back. But, it's just been a lot going on. Where do you see the world going on right now?
Well, if you read the different areas of the Bible that discuss what the end days look like, not just the book of Revelation, but Matthew 24, Ezekiel 38, and all these different books in the Bible discuss the book of Daniel, I think 7, 9, and 10, something like that. It says what's happening right now, right? And this is just and that's not to instill fear in anyone, right? But and people will say, well, that's been going on, since time began. The same thing, the floods and the hurricanes and the droughts and the wars and all that. Yes, they have.
Right.
They have been going on all that time. And everyone says, well, everybody's been saying that about Jesus is coming for 2,000 years. Yes, it's true. However, what we're seeing right now is everything happening at one time.
Right.
I call it convergence. All these things are now happening just almost simultaneously. And Jesus said, when you see these things begin to take place, look up, because your redemption's drawing near. And, here we are with this virus. We've had viruses before. You heard them talk about the Black Plague and all this other stuff, right? Spanish flu, had the I want to call it the swine flu. Had the swine flu, all these different things going on before. But here you got, the earthquakes, you got the floods, you got the locusts. I don't know if you heard about the locusts in the Middle East. Now they're branching up into parts of Russia, the Russian outlying countries there. So you got the locust infestations, you got, the floods in some places and the droughts in others. And, the hurricanes, they're saying this is going to be a bad year for hurricanes. And, the tornadoes going through the Midwest, the fires out in California, the floods in the Midwest, they're talking about the Yellowstone National Park is a super volcano, and it's starting to get a little active. And if that blows, that destroys the farming district, from the Midwest. And what are you going to do then? So all these things are happening simultaneously. I mean, they're just it's not, oh, this year there was a flood, last year there was a fire, oh, this year there's a war, next year there's an earthquake. It's war, earthquake, flood, fire, all happening at the same time. So my viewpoint on this is look up, because the redemption's about to draw near, and like I said, it's no fear as long as you understand where you're at. If you're not a believer, and you probably got a reason to be worried because they say, well, I don't believe in all that. That's fine. Every person has a right to believe what they want.
Right.
You got your right to be wrong. So, that's my opinion, but, and I explained to some people, I said, look, if the Christians are right and you're wrong, you got all of eternity to remember that. If you're right and we're wrong, what does it matter?
Right.
You know? So yeah, my viewpoint on it is I see the soon return of Jesus coming very soon. You know, it could be
Absolutely.
1 year, 2 years, 20 years. I don't know. I might not be here when it does. But this is just the convergence of all these signs happening simultaneously. That tells you that, Jesus said, when you see all these things begin to take place, and here we are, they're beginning to take place all at the same time.
Yeah, it's really, we've survived World War II and 9/11, and like you said, swine and many others that has happened, and of course, uh, LA and all on that side of the world, they've experienced a lot as far as earthquakes and everything all the time, and we've survived a lot, but something like this to happen to the point where everywhere you go, you gotta wear a mask. People wearing the mask, like we're all looking like doctors and all that now, and businesses are struggling and all that. I mean, it's really interest. It is a time where I feel as though people really should get into a closer relationship with God and really look at their lives in terms of what are they doing as far as living. Are they living it right? What they should correct. And you're right, there are people out there who don't believe, they're still doing their thing. There are people out there who don't even wear a mask, and but
that's right.
It is a lot going on in this world, and
yeah, amen. I know with I mean, we'll just look at what this pandemic thing has done. For a while, we've idolized our sports athletes, right? Lifting them up on a pedestal, right?
Right.
People have been chasing the almighty dollar for years. There's never enough. You went from $50,000 a year to $100,000 a year. Great. I want $250,000 a year. I mean, you're always chasing more money, right? The Hollywood, the movie stars and stuff, we lift them up as idols. The musicians, lift them up as idols. Look at what God did. I tell people that he gave the whole world a timeout to decide on what is really most important. He removed the sports idols. He removed the economic idol. He removed the movie star, the shut down the movie theaters and the film industry, shut down the music industry, shut everything down and says, stay home. All right. Think about what's important, which is your relationship with him and your relationship with your family,
Right.
And that's why I call it the whole world got a timeout all of a sudden. I mean, it wasn't like, we'll gradually move it. No, the whole world in a period of like a month shut down. Right.
Yeah.
And then, then what happens? Yeah, we have to wear masks. That increases the lack of personal contact. Everyone talks about, you can read people's faces, the smile and, all that. Well, if they're wearing a mask, it removes that closeness you can have. So now there's the insensitivity and you're not being as personable in your relationships with other people as you are. And then add on top of that these riots and stuff like that. What's happening? They're all wearing masks. It used to be the Antifa or whatever it was, they were the ones with the masks. Now everybody's wearing a mask. You can't tell who the bad guy is, And I remember my dad, he had his let's just call it a criminal career. Okay. I mean, I can imagine if he was alive right now, he'd be, but if he was younger at that point, in his life, and this was happening, being able to walk into a bank with a mask on and nobody give you a second look. I mean, come on. Just a few years ago, you walk in a bank with a mask on, you're likely to get shot by the security guard.
Right.
Now they want you to wear a mask.
I've said that. Do certain masks they have with designs on there and all, like a bandana? I've said that. Yep. Like nowadays, we look like we're either doctors or, as I call it, a sticker rocker. Somebody's going to go in and stick up the place because we all wearing a mask now. So it's like, yeah, it's a interesting time that we're in.
Yeah, it sure is.
Have you ever had 'cause I know earlier you were saying that you were ordained pastor. Have you ever had a moment where you gave a message to somebody and somebody gave you a positive message back to you, like a fan or somebody that goes to your church?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's been several, too many to even count.
Yeah,
Where I'd give a word. I remember one time I was given a message, and this he was this is back in Texas, and there was an unofficial association of churches, I guess you could say. There's just a
right,
bunch of pastors, like 20 pastors that throughout the Central Texas area, and they would get together once a month. Some of these guys have been in ministry for 40 years. And what they do is when they meet once a month, they pick usually 4 people, and they give like a 15-minute sermonette type thing, and they pick me to give one. And I'm like, what am I going to say to these guys? I've been in ministry like 2 years, and these guys
right.
have been there 40. They've been in ministry longer than I've been alive at the time. And I said, what am I going to say about, so I said, well, I'll just go for it. And I don't know what I was speaking on. I don't remember. But when I got done, this old guy is about 85 years old. He goes, I've been a born again Christian for 75 years. I had never seen that in the Bible till you just brought that out.
Right.
So I mean, that stuff like that really it really helps you to understand. Wow, when he said that, I was like, cool. But that's just one example.
Right. Yeah. I always I do have a church home. My pastor is Thomas Cobb, but I always love to see different videos and messages from people all over the place, giving different viewpoints on the word of the day, where the world is going to, and that's why I was like thankful to have you come on board because each Sunday I've always hear a different message come from you, and like we discussed, it just so much going on in the world today. It's like we really, I recently said that people should really communicate more with each other. I mean, I know we always busy, but with family and friends, because you never know. Tomorrow's never promised.
Yeah. I mean, there have been times when I was sharing that, and sometimes I do it even on the broadcast. There is somebody listening to me right now that will not make it home from the grocery store this afternoon. They'll be in a car accident or what. So to have them say, well, that sounds good. I guess I'll wait till Sunday and talk to my pastor about getting saved after church, something like that. Say, you have no guarantee that you're going to wake up tomorrow morning, let alone wait till next Sunday. As if the Lord's pulling on your heart of making that commitment, you need to do it right then, because he may see what's coming around the corner. It could be an 18-wheeler coming around that stop sign that you're getting ready to go to the grocery store to. I mean, you have no clue what the future. You're not guaranteed your next breath.
Right.
So and I've had some friends. One was going upstairs to take a shower to get ready to take his kids out to see a movie, and never came downstairs. The younger son went up and found him dead in the bathtub. Just massive heart attack. Boom, right there. So I mean that you're not guaranteed the next breath.
Yeah. Has there been a time where, well, I know, of course, it didn't happen with you, of course, but was there a time where you thought of doing something and you heard God's voice and he told you that might not be the best idea and you did something else and ended up being the best decision that you did?
Yes. Again, too many times, to even narrow it down, but, starting this radio station was like, I argued with God about that. Like I said, when I started what is called the podcast, I just called my online radio program 30-minute online radio program. That's all I did once a week, and I had no clue what I was doing. Had to self-taught myself the whole thing. And
Right.
when he said the radio station, I'm like, you don't do you? I mean, I had to have help checking email. Okay, I am not technically inclined at all. Right, that's the God's honest truth. At work, I go in and say, how do I access this email stuff again? Because you're required to check your email at least twice a day. How do
Right.
I forgot how do I log into this thing? What do I got to do? And your guy's telling me start an online radio station. How am I going to do that? And, but we researched it, we did it, and just like when to show you how God works, we started off on live365.com, October of 2010, and that's how we were progressing. In 2014, in the spring, the Lord just impressed on my heart. I said, this station is not doing everything I want it to do. And he impressed on my heart that he wanted us to be able to do live broadcasting, right?
Right.
And Live 365 would let you do live broadcasting. But that person, let's say you were on the radio and it was your time to do a live broadcast, you would actually have to log in to Live 365 with my credentials and then click live broadcast on your computer. At the end of your live broadcast, you would have to click stop live broadcast and then log out. Then I could get back on the computer again.
Right.
Well, I wasn't going to do that. But if someone, let's say, you're in a rush, your wife's like, hey, you need to hurry up. We're going to be late for dinner, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then you get up and walk away and you forget to stop the live broadcast.
Right.
There's just dead air because I can't log in to take you off because you're already logged in with my credentials. Right. So we said, no, we're not doing that. I'm not doing live broadcasting. Well, the Lord put on my heart, you need to be able to do live broadcasting. And he gave me a list of 10 things. I call it my 10 commandments. Mm-hmm. And one of, being able to do a live broadcast in every time zone in the world. They had computer and internet access. So someone here could do it 10 a.m. Eastern time, and next person 10 a.m. Central, next one 10 a.m. Mountain time, 10 a.m. All the way around the world. We could just rotate live broadcasters, right? And have the servers set up where at 10 a.m., if that's your live time, you can't log in at 9:59. It will not let you on. 10 a.m., you can hit live broadcast. At 11 a.m. or at 10:30 or whatever your time slot is, if, because this is what I was doing when I first started, I'd lose track of the time. I'd look up, like, I got, 60 seconds left till my time slot's over. It's like, well, I need 5 more minutes to finish it up, So I just keep on going. Well, that interferes with someone else who's coming in behind you, their broadcast. So the server's got to be able to turn you off whether or not you want to be off or not. And that's how we were able to. It took us about 4 or 5 months to develop that platform, but that's how it's been running. And the server does not discriminate. If I'm really into it and I look up and I like, oh, I got 2 minutes left, but I haven't even started my close yet.
Right.
At 10 a.m. because there's another live broadcaster coming on behind me. At 10 a.m., the server cuts me off. Right? It doesn't care who I am. It cuts me off. Now, I'll continue recording and finish my 2-3 minutes or whatever, but you're not hearing it on the radio. It's just on the recording. Now I can use that later. But, it'll cut me off. It does not discriminate at all. If your time's up, Jack, boom, you're off. But so when we set that up, and there was other things that we had, like I said, 10 things that we wanted that the Lord said this must have. And then my IT guy added 4 more. So we had a total of 14. It took us 5 months till we were finally able to get a platform that did all 14 things. We've been with them ever since. But once we started doing this, that was we got that started in June or July of 2014, and by October, November 2014 is where the platform we're on now. And we said, well, let's test this for about 60 days because I was going to go to a ministers conference in Texas, and I wanted to see how it ran. I could monitor it, from the laptop, where we were staying at. And I just wanted to see if there's going to be any technical issues. I was gone 2 weeks. We did not have one technical issue. It ran perfect. I go, wow. So we came back the end of November. We're going to start January 1st, 2015. And I was talking to the IT guy. I said, we didn't have any issues at all. Why wait? Let's just flip the switch. So we did. And that's what is now Evangelism Radio. But when we started that, within 8 months, because it was August of 2015, we were rated #1 in the world in Christian online radio stations by shoutcast.com. So it was, did I lose you? You still there? Okay. Yeah. But,
I'm still here. We had a technical difficulty there.
I know. I understand too. I do this all the time. But we were rated #1 in the world by shoutcast.com for online Christian radio. We've been rated #1 on numerous occasions since then. But
there you go.
That told me that the Lord was, that we're doing what He wants us to do, because He gave us favor, and we started off with one broadcaster when we started this in 2010. That was me. Now we got 57, 58 different broadcasters submitting files each and every week. We edit them, we load the servers, the playlists, and all that stuff. So it's been a full-time gig, put it like that. It is definitely a full-time gig.
But at least you're doing something that you ended up loving doing, and people are following you. You're giving a positive message each week, and who knew? It's one of those things that a friend of
Who knew?
It's one of those things a friend of mine said to me last year, that whenever you hear, rather your conscience or God talking with you to do something, you gotta do it because it could benefit, and doing what you did, it really benefited.
Yeah, and I've interviewed several national ministries, and when I was talking to these guys and explained the background, everything you and I just shared, I've had 4 or 5 of them almost verbatim say, you don't realize how many people in this world you are impacting right now. People you will never meet this side of heaven.
Right.
But they're getting born again because of what you're doing. And when you get to heaven, they're going to be lined up thanking you for doing this radio station. And he said, but that just was the first time I heard, sounds good. And a few months later, another major minister said the same thing. And over the course of about a year, I had 4 of them say the same thing, almost like I said, almost verbatim. So that told me that we're doing something that is impacting and changing people's lives. I may not ever meet 99.9% of the people. The message is still going out, because one word from God can change somebody's life forever.
Yes. So, hey, look, if we ever meet in person, remind me to get your autograph, because you're up there with Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney in them, man.
My autograph and about $2 might get you a cup of coffee at McDonald's or something. But
there you go. Oh man,
I appreciate it, man.
No problem, man. So well, I know that we're further in. Well, now we're in June. Today's June the 1st, and now we're in the summertime. It's getting hot now. What did you? Well, normally I ask people, since we're New Year, but now all this didn't happen. But I was going to ask you, what is your current plans for the rest of the year?
Continue to march. My schedule goes on a weekly basis, and as far as the radio station, the ministry, I want to say one day just merges with the other, but every day is different. However, each week is almost the same.
Right.
Fridays, Saturdays are my heavy workload days. Those are the days where Friday, there's people are from all over the country are sending me their files for next week. Some of them need editing, some don't. Some are just simple drag and drop. But some need intros and outros put in there, and some need additional editing. And so Friday and Saturdays is playlist day, and
Right.
Sundays is loading the server. But I mean, so it's Friday, Saturday, and about half a day Sunday is all just getting ready for next week.
Right.
Then Monday through Thursday is my podcast interviews and getting all those things edited and doing the research. You get someone on to do an interview. It takes, if it's a 45-minute interview, I bet I put at least an hour and a half, 2 hours in the prep. Right. Researching them and what questions am I going to ask, and what I've done is really kind of humorous. I'll go into their about pages and get their backgrounds and stuff. And I've had some people that they've had a website before, and on their website there's still this little link to this old website they used to have, and I'll go over there to the old website and start looking around stuff. And I remember I had this one lady she had an old website from 7-8 years ago. And she talked about her husband. She lived on a farm with her husband, 2 kids, and 5 crazy ducks, or five crazy chickens or something. I can't remember what it was now. So the last question I asked her, we're going through the interview, everything's got, and I said, I have to ask you this question before we close. And she said, what's that? He goes, tell me about living on a farm with your husband, 2 kids, and 5 crazy chickens. And she just busted out laughing, right? She goes, where did you hear about that? God, that's 10 years ago, You goes, you really do your research. But that, I always try and get one of those types of questions in,
right,
when I'm doing an interview. Not so much, what happened 10, 15 years ago type thing, but something that nobody else would ask them. It could be, let's say a law enforcement officer decided to become a cop because he was in an accident as a teenager and the officer was nice and whatever it could be, right? And so I'd ask them about that. Tell me about this accident you were in as a teenager, and that set your destiny for what you're doing now. So, so it's something that hardly anybody would ever ask them. I always try and find one. Sometimes I can't find anything,
Right.
But I would say 85% of the time I'll find that one question and when I ask it, it's almost inevitable. They all start laughing. Like, where did you find that? But as I say, it takes me a good hour and a half to prep for a 45-minute interview.
Right. So. For me, I think from all the interviews I've done, because recently I started doing them live, but before I was doing it over the phone. Mm-hmm. And I think the only hard time I've ever had was the time where I planned 3 interviews in one day, but I didn't spread the time out right. So, because I tell people give me an hour, even though I don't, like I said, I don't like rushing people. So if it goes over, that's fine. But I told one person, okay, we're gonna do 1 o'clock, then 2 o'clock, the other 4 o'clock. The 1 o'clock went over to 2:05. Mind you, somewhere in all this time while I'm over the phone, I had to go to the bathroom. So I had to try to monitor all that. And by the time I was done with all 3 interviews, it was 5 or going on 6. And I was like, wow, the whole day then went, and I multitasked, and it's it is a challenge. It can be a challenge, because you're talking to somebody for an hour. You don't know what to expect, and how open they're going to be. And just like you said, I do my research. I've interviewed people from television, was on television, and I used to look at past interviews to know what questions to ask, what he didn't
Yep.
ask, what she didn't ask, because
Yep.
yeah, it's they might say, oh,
Exactly.
I get asked this a lot and all that stuff, but
Yep.
but for me it's like, yeah, but you're on my show, I want you to give me an answer, hopefully
Yeah.
just right. But
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, it is a challenge, but once you start doing this, it's really fun. It's really
It
something.
is.
You might
Yeah.
find out something you didn't know about somebody who you saw on TV or who was acting or was a book author. I find that out a lot from people.
Yeah. Exactly. And the contacts that I established. I'm doing an interview this week. I'll just hold the book up. This guy here was a general in the
Hmm.
cavalry at the same time I was in the cavalry. I don't know where is it. There it is, right there. My cav flag back there when I was in the military, and
Yeah.
I mean, this guy knows the same people that I know.
Right.
And I just want to do an interview with him. Yeah, sure. I'd love to. And then we got talking back and forth on email like you and I did. And
Right.
I just real quick, hey, I'd love to do this interview because I was in the cab. Blah, blah, blah. I took a picture of the wall, sent it to him, and all that. And he said, "When were you in the cab?" And I told him. He says, "Who is your commander?" And I gave him the name. He goes, "I know that guy. He's a nice guy." So anyway, he sent me his book. We're going to be doing the interview this week, and but yeah, it's you never know who you're going to, what little piece of information is going to like totally transform what you're doing and your outlook on what you're doing and how you do it. And there have been, oh, gosh, I mean, I've interviewed some major ministers over the
Hmm.
years, and
Right.
some of them came on our radio station. They, once they found out we had a radio station, they say, "How do I get on?" Type thing. So I mean, so you never know how you're gonna bless someone just by asking questions. I mean, that's
Right.
what's so cool about this is, you know, all we're doing is asking questions and giving people a chance to talk. You
There
know,
you go.
yeah,
I recently joked saying because of what we do in a way we could be considered like news reporters.
mm-hmm.
I once said that from us doing what we do as we're like news reporters, we should be on the news getting the news money, making that
Yeah, yeah.
money.
Amen.
Yeah, I mean you're interviewing somebody, you're doing the story. There you go.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
And that's why when I started, like I said, just transitioning away from the pastors, I still do pastors and ministers and all that. I'd say, 15% of what I do is still pastors and ministers, but now it's, business leaders and, influencers, authors, musicians, missionaries. I've interviewed some ladies that are involved in, combating human trafficking and, different things like that. I mean, and to hear their stories is so inspiring to me, of what they went through and what they are accomplishing, how they are impacting the world and nobody even knows about it, you
Right.
know, outside their little sphere of influence. And that's where I look at it. The podcast is a way for me to let everybody else know what they're doing. At
Right.
least in my sphere, expose my sphere of influence to what they're doing, so that enlarges our sphere of influence as well. So, yeah,
There you go.
absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite genre of music that you listen to?
Definitely Christian. I'm
Yeah.
kind of old fashioned. I like the old Hillsong music, like Darlene Zschech.
Hmm.
That era from the late '90s. Uh, not so much the new stuff anymore, but
Right.
I guess back when in the late '90s, a lot of people that are my age now, they just like the traditional hymns and stuff like that. So I guess that goes with the territory. Mine is
Yeah.
the Darlene Zschech and Hillsong type of music from the '90s. So yeah.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I totally understand because that's kind of how I am. I listen to a lot of. I was born in '91, But there was a lot of music that was coming at that time, and I listened to a lot of music from that time and the 80s and 70s. I don't listen to a lot of new stuff today, but I do. I like jazz, so I do listen to jazz, and of course, gospel and inspirational music. I love Mercy Me and Stephen Curtis Chapman and Chris Tomlin. Yeah, so many of them. Yeah.
My first ministry job was with a guy he's out of the Church of God in Christ. His name is Dr. Bernard Johnson, and he's known as the world's greatest gospel saxophonist. And he's like 80 years old now. But when I had my business in Texas, a guy that was on my board of directors was on his board of directors. And he's telling me, I went up to stay at his house for a weekend, and we're talking and stuff. He goes, I got you to listen to this guy. And I said, wow, that's pretty good sax. It's all gospel. And he goes, yeah, it's Bernard Johnson. I said, oh, okay. Never heard of him. And anyway, he was coming down to the Killeen, Texas area. And he said, hey, Bernard's coming down. He says, I'd like you to, I'm going to go down he's at a banquet, like a 25th anniversary of this church or something. He says, I'd like you to go down and be my guest. I'm going to go down and to watch his banquet. He's going to be the guest speaker and all that stuff. I goes, well, I got an appointment that night. He said, but I can get there later. And said, what do I got to wear? I said, just come as you are, just for your appointment. So, and he said, Church of God in Christ. He said, now there'll only be like 2 white guys there, you and me. He said, but, so I said, okay, no problem. He said, I'll have a seat right next to me, for just safe for us. All right. So I'm running about 20, 30 minutes behind because of my appointment. So I'm wearing a dress slacks with a white polo shirt, right? That's what I wear on my appointments. And so I walk in here, and it's a black tie affair, right? And I'm looking, the guy's like, can I help you? I says, yeah, I'm looking for my friend Doug J. And Bernard is up speaking, right? And he goes, oh, here's the other guy we were waiting on. And every head in the place swings around, right? And their eyes are focused on me. Like I said, black tie affair. I'm wearing a white polo shirt. And I look up on the stage, and here's my friend, Doug James, up on the stage, on the platform, with an empty seat next to him. He reaches over and just pats the seat, like, here you go, right here. Right. So Bernard's like, come on up here, So I walk up and I sit down on the stage, and Doug leans over and says, told you I'd save you a seat. But we ended up putting together a couple of concerts for him in other churches, and I ended up getting hired right out of Bible school to be his national concert coordinator, which basically means I was his road manager, his scheduler. And he'd come in and he'd say, Bob, I've been praying about going to San Diego. Let's make it happen. Well, from the time he said that until they said, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Bernard Johnson, everything passed through me. The travel, the hotel, the insurance for the venue, the who's going to be up on the platform with them, who's going to be the opening act. I mean, I ran the whole thing. And I learned a lot from him. And we did 48 concerts in 48 cities in 1 year. Wow. I mean, it was go, 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 And but that was my first ministry gig out of Bible school. And I learned so much from that man. And, I worked for him for 2.5 years, I think it was. And then we got ready to move out here. So, So yeah, and ministry is like that. You meet so many people. I met, oh gosh, so many. Fred Price. We were in his church, so I had dinner with him and his wife, me, Bernard, and I mean, it's amazing how you see these people on stage, or as you're talking about, the actors and the movie stars and all. And they're just like everybody else.
Right.
And again, what we're talking about, we've lifted them up on these pedestals, and some of them have taken that to heart, where do you know who I am type thing. But I would say 90% of them they're just like, hey, I'll sit down here. I don't care. I mean, it's, I don't need to be on the platform. I can sit down here in the audience. I mean,
Right.
they're just so humble, and it is so amazing when I'm interviewing someone on the podcast and I'm thinking, oh man, this is so and so, and they're just telling you about, yeah, well, yeah, had to take the dog out for a walk, and it decided it wanted to go doo-doo, and I'm picking up the stuff, and someone, hey pastor, how you doing?
There you go.
I mean, so you never know, but they're just like everybody else.
Exactly. I found that out too. It's like, you see them, you know them for what they do, and then you talk to them and you discover like they just like us. They people. They did their job. They doing what they gotta do to eat and survive, and we know them. But you meet them in person or over the phone or in podcast, and it's like, yeah, they just like us. They human, natural.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, when we started Faithcaster over here somewhere. There it is, right there. Faithcasters.net.
Okay.
That was started off, because we had the radio station, we had the podcast, but there was no Christian podcasting company. It was always secular, and the secular, you can't fault them because they're in it for the money. That's the reason they're in business. So to make it simple, they would put all the Christian podcasters in the category of religion and spirituality. Right? And so that means if someone types in life after death, your message is going to be mixed in with the atheists, the agnostics, the Wiccans, the Muslims, the Hindus, and everybody else in between. So there might be 25 different episodes of different podcasts that talk about life after death, but your message is mixed in there somewhere. Right. There was 0 Christian podcast hosting platforms. So about 2 years ago, my board of directors, they were like, okay, the radio station's been going good, and all that. What's next? What comes next?
Right.
And the podcast was really starting to take off at that time. So I was really doing research and stuff on podcasts. And I told him, I said, the podcast, podcasting is really taking off. It's kind of like where AM radio was back in the 80s. I mean, FM radio was back in the 80s. It's just launching right now. Back then, you had to special order an FM radio in your car, type thing.
Really?
So it's really popular now. And matter of fact, now you can play your podcasts in the car.
Right.
Little USB thing. So I said, well, find out how we can make an impact in this. So that's what we started off. And when they told me that, 2 weeks later was a podcast movement conference. It was going to be up in Philadelphia. And we're talking about, we started talking about, these people that you idolize type thing, and how just down to earth they are. Well, I was part of John Lee Dumas's Podcasters Paradise group, and he was going to hold a meetup group at this conference just for people in his little group. Well, he's a former, cavalry officer, right?
Wow.
So I figured, well, I'll go up and hang in the background, and that's what I did until he had some time to himself. So I walked up and I just dropped a Cav phrase that means absolutely nothing to anybody unless you're into Cav. But when I said it, his eyes lit up. Says, Cav? He goes, yeah, hey, and we talked for a few minutes. He goes, so what are you doing? What's up? So I told him what we're looking at doing, starting our own podcast hosting platform.
There you go.
He put his arm around me. He said, see that guy over there? I said, yeah. He goes, that's Mark Asquith. He's the brains behind all this stuff. He said, go over and tell him I sent you over there. I said, all right. So I went over and introduced myself to Mark Asquith and told him what we were doing. He called over his engineer and said, listen to what this guy says. So I told him the same thing we're looking at doing. They looked at each other, smiled, and said, we are making something that is exactly what you said you're looking for. He goes, after this conference over, let's stay in touch. So, okay. So that was in July. We got back together in September. So from September 2018, we were on Zoom calls probably once a month. And I became a beta tester for his platform. It's called Captivate.fm. And that is, I would say, well, what about this? He goes, ooh, we never even thought about that. Yeah, and they incorporate that idea in there, right? And so anyway, in February, we launched faithcasters.net as the first Christian podcast hosting platform designed by Christians for Christians, right? And we launched it officially. It launched with the our beta testers and stuff in February. The official launch came February 25th, and 1 week later, this virus stuff hit. So it all kind of, got our big launch kind of snuffed out, but we're still growing. I mean, we still have people finding us and all that. But but that is the, it's, when you said, how down to earth people are. So I say everyone looks at John Lee Do. Oh man, this, multi-millionaire guy off of podcasting and all this stuff, I talked to him just, cav officer. And, I mean, he put his arm around me. He said, go talk to this guy, Mark Asquith. And I, so these guys that you see in podcasting, like, they're way up here, they wouldn't have anything to do with it. I mean, if you wanted to do an interview on John Lee Dumas's podcast, it's like $5,000 for 15 minutes, type thing. Right. I mean, he's way up here, and they helped us build our platform. I mean, that's what I say. So I mean, it's like, wow, this is so cool. And Mark Asquith and I, if I don't have anything to do and I see he's doing a Facebook Live, I'll pop in and he'll call me out. Bob Thibodeau, good to see you, man. Like we need to get in touch again. So I mean, these guys remember us. And who'd ever thought?
Right.
Who'd ever thought?
Who knew? Back then, and back in the day, the internet was. We didn't have no internet. It wasn't like this.
Oh,
and today, 2020, it done took over. It's like boom.
Yeah, I can remember if you wanted to get in touch with someone, you had to send them a letter and wait and hope for 3 or 4 weeks for another letter to come back.
Yeah. Or payphone. You had to find a payphone and call somebody with that. Yeah.
Or call collect. When I was working for Bernard Johnson and we were traveling, we'd be at the airport. And I'd have the AT&T calling card because I'm at the airport getting ready to go to, say, Minneapolis, right? And I'm calling Savannah, Georgia about what's happening 6 weeks from now, And then, from Minneapolis, the concert is Friday night. We're going to go to Richmond Saturday night. So I'm coordinating everything there. And then Sunday, I'm going to Kansas City to promote the concert coming up in 6 weeks, So,
right.
I mean, it's, payphones. I lived on payphones there for 2 years. I mean, I lived on. I always had something. Hey, Bob, we're boarding. Okay, yeah. You can't find a payphone nowadays.
No, I mean, if you see one, it's probably broke. I mean, it's really, really rare. I mean, I've seen some in my neighborhood. The thing just standing there, or it's like part of the phone is there, but it look like somebody like cut it or broke it in half, and it's like, oh, okay, all right.
Try and get that quarter. Yeah. Amen.
Right. Amen. Yeah, Robert, we've had a lot of fun talking today, man. I
enjoyed myself.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you one little question before I let you go.
All right.
With everything that's been going on, like we talked about, I mean, what advice do you give people today? Like, what is your word that you normally give people?
Number one, you need to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. I said, everything in this world is not worth losing your salvation over. Mm-hmm. And that is number one. I just can't emphasize that enough. You could have $1 million in the bank and I mean, you look at all these people, Jerry Madoff or whatever his name is, all these guys wanted more. Now they're in prison, because they wanted more. That doesn't mean you have to be satisfied where you're at. You should always be striving to get better. But number one is your relationship for all of eternity with Jesus Christ. Number two, if you have the inspiration from God or from whatever that you want to do something, just go ahead and do it. well, what if I don't really know how to do that? What if I don't know how. I don't know if like I said, when I just started this podcast, 30-minute online radio program, talking into a flip cell phone on a free website, I developed a following, and that just blew my mind. Wow. I mean, I had within 2-3 weeks, I had 7-8 people following me and logging in every time I come on. It's like, wow, this is kind of cool. But I had no clue what I was doing. But that because I obeyed, and I asked the Lord one time about the radio station when it was rated #1 in the world, and I was getting invited to speak at different churches and stuff, talk about the radio. I said, Lord, why me? Why did you pick me for this? And he has such a way of keeping you humble without making you feel bad, right? He said, I'll never forget, he said, you weren't my first choice. I was like, I wasn't your first choice? He goes, no. He said, you were just the first one that obeyed. And that's why the blessings came. So that's what you got to do. If you're inspired to do something, just do it. Because when you do it, the blessings will come. Did I lose you again? Hey, Matt, I think I lost you. Yep, sure did. See if he pops back in, folks. I have this happen to me not all the time, but it does happen. You got to love technology. Well,
We've had some technical difficulties here. I'm going to give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Well, I've experienced a little technical difficulties there. I'm going to try to get Robert back in a few or probably another day because I'm actually getting ready to conclude this podcast. But listen, thank you guys for tuning in for what you have seen. It's been fun talking with Robert. Stay tuned for more episodes to come. And hey, if you're a fan on YouTube and Facebook, please stay tuned. You're gonna learn a lot more. I hope you definitely learned a lot today. Technical difficulties here, but we will try again. I'm gonna get Robert back. Till next time.